Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of sports, specifically in Canada, and specifically about hockey. I'm your co-host, Mick. You can find me on Twitter at ProfitMick, which isn't that ironic right now, which is actually kind of nice. You know, it makes me feel like, gets me out of bed in the morning. Makes me want to talk to the big guy upstairs, my co-host.
Grant on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. And I think your introduction, absolutely outstanding, nailed it without a doubt, but you got to introduce people to the brand new improved version of Mick. This is the business Mick.
It's true. I'm coming in. Yeah.
Looks like you want a job at a bank.
That's what I'm gunning for. Something nice, something professional. You know, I got the haircut cleaned up this week. Didn't really have the playoff beard so much as I had kind of like the flow. Having long hair, kind of an awful experience. Like, I guess it was kind of fun if I could do it up in like a ponytail. I never really ever showed that on the podcast, but if you ever watched, it was the hat, it was the long shaggy hair, and it was just really goddamn hot this week, and everything was sticky and sweaty, and my hair poofed out. I was like, enough of that, so I got a new clean look, so.
I feel like you need a pencil stash, like, you know, one of those super razor thin ones. Like, if you did that with your haircut, I think you would be a shoo-in for bank manager.
Right. Just walk in a nice, like, mediocre suit, you know, like, looks like I need the job, because you don't want to dress like you don't need it, right? So maybe a couple of holes in the pocket, like something hanging out, and a used handkerchief.
Yeah, and you definitely have to pull a sandwich out of your pocket, but not like a nice looking sandwich, like just ham and cheese on like bread that's falling apart.
Yeah, that's cheese whiz inside, if you're wondering. It's actually, I can't afford the slice stuff. I'll work really hard because I need this job. I'm glad that's the look I'm giving off, you know, like, confidence. Hey.
I am so close to just giving it all up. I need this bank manager job so badly.
I get it. Finances. We print money, we give it to people, done. You know, people give us money. I can figure this out, no problem.
My Twitter name is literally Profit Mick. You can't go wrong by hiring me.
And no one on Twitter has ever been wrong, so...
The internet remains undefeated.
Speaking of Twitter, oh man, I got into it this week. like apparently there's some islands you shouldn't die on, and it's defending the Maple Leafs losing. You should not be on that island on Twitter, because I have never had, like, I think I had 100 plus notifications one day. I made like 5 tweets, I got a bunch of likes, people coming after me. It was delightful.
That's kind of... I think we missed our viral, like, marketing opportunity. If you could have just posted a little clip of us afterwards, like something stupid we said, and then we probably could have got dozens of clicks. Well, I mean, I think the market's still there. Like, Leafs Twitter is still hot. It's still fresh. They're still trading Mitch Marner every single second for every other player in the league. Just saying. That opportunity's still there. I just don't want to go back there. It was awful. Wow, that leads us right into our opening segment, which is headlines.
Headlines.
And what better headline to start with than the postmortem on the Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens first round North Division matchup. Mick, you kind of gave our listeners a taste of your last week. Why don't we really just like fester in your emotions? What has the last 7 days been like for you?
It's been rough. Yeah, like we talked last week, they were coming off of a Game 5 overtime loss, kind of a throwaway by Galchenyuk there, and we're like, you know, it happens. I was very optimistic. It was going to happen Saturday night. I had money on Montreal, so I emotionally hedged myself, both in real life as well as on the podcast, so hopefully you took that advice. I think Grant was even on that boat too, so we were kind of on the right track. Saturday night was a little rough. Right? Nothing like a little bit of overtime hockey on a Saturday night makes you feel really good about yourself. That's a tough one. That, like, game 6 in my mind is so difficult because the Leafs were the better team. They outplayed the Montreal Canadiens. Campbell let in some kind of easy-ish goals, right? A little bit of inconsistency on his part kind of cost him that. But there was 50 real-time minutes between shots in a hockey game. So 50 minutes, so whatever it was like 10 o'clock or whatever, 8 o'clock our time. Jack Campbell did not see the winning shot on him till 8:50. So 50 minutes. There wasn't a 40-minute intermission. There was like an actual hockey game being played. And it was like, can you blame a guy at that point? I don't know. They came out a little bit flat-footed on the Monday affair for that Game 7 and just kind of got outworked, right? Montreal had their numbers. They shut down Mitch Marner, and I think Mitch Marner directly contributes to Austin Matthews' production. So they were saying that the big stars weren't there. I think the goal scoring that we're seeing from Austin Matthews is there's a big correlation to how Mitch Marner plays, right? So the fact that they were in his head, they kind of shut him down, that took away that whole element of the game. The Leafs aren't that deep offensively when you take out those two big guys. I think Nylander was playing well. He did have his goal, but without the Tavareses, with Muzzins on the bench. And, I mean, they're outclassed in net. Like, kudos to Grant's man-boner friend, Carey Price. That guy played all world. He gave the team all the confidence, right? And that's kind of what we're going to say about that, right? Like, I think the Leafs on paper, if you talk to anyone that knows anything about advanced analytics, that watches the games, the Leafs were the better hockey team, but the Leafs leafed, and that's where we're at, so.
Yeah, I was expecting a more expletive-ridden tirade, but, you know, it sounds like you're in this acceptance portion of grief, so.
I mean, I had money. When it was 3-1, I put a significant amount of money on Montreal to win every game for my emotional hedge. So my bankroll is looking really good right now. And apparently my love for the Maple Leafs is only like $250 worth. So after that point, I'm like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. From an advanced perspective, the Leafs were the better team.
Yeah, like
William Nylander, from start to finish, was the best player. Well, Jack Campbell notwithstanding, William Nylander was the best player in that series. Skater, maybe we can call him. But I think that change is inevitable. Like, when you shit the bed time and time and time again, and kind of in the worst circumstances, and that is, you're blowing third period leads with less than 8 minutes to go. You're blowing 3-1 series lead against the worst team, the worst playoff team in your division. Like, these are more than just one-offs. Like, this is a point of, like, whether it's, like, an active, like, thought process or, like, there's something else going on here. Like, they tried bringing in veterans. That didn't do anything. God bless Joe Thornton. I want that guy to win a cup so badly. Wayne Simmons was a beast. But it didn't get them over the hump. Like, I think that whether it's from management, and that is somebody like Brendan Shanahan losing his job, or if it's something like William Nylander, I think trading Mitch Marner would be like the worst thing to do. But I said at the start of the postseason, if they lose, I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody like William Nylander moved. And I stand by that. I think that William Nylander is, like, especially after the postseason, I would say that his stock will probably never be higher. And you could probably get 2-3 NHL-ready players to fulfill that second and third line so that the Leafs don't have this reliance on Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. Because when they don't go, and they didn't go this postseason, it cost them. It was akin to the Oilers and the reliance on Edmonton and Draisaitl. Like, secondary scoring would have made their postseason experience, I think, a little better. But Game 7, like, they didn't have a sniff until the third period. Like, Montreal came out and they played their system to a T. And I don't think the Leafs had a 5-on-5 high danger chance until the third period. Maybe they had one or two towards the end of the second, but, like, they got nowhere near Carey Price, and that just allowed Carey Price to make the easy saves that he needed to make, and the Habs were obviously victorious. And we're seeing that in the first two games of the second round playoff matchup too.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, right now the Montreal Canadiens are very opportunistic. Like I was just thinking of goals. The best game the Montreal Canadiens played was Game 7, right? The Gallagher goal, the Corey Perry goal? Was he the guy that also scored in the game? Anyways, like, most of their chances seemed very fluky. And just to that point, you said Jack Campbell, you think, was one of the best players on the ice. He had moments of greatness, absolute brilliance, but he had several collapses, right? Like Game 5, maybe? The Joel Armia, that easy goal that he let in early on. And then that other goal where he's out of the crease on his back and the puck kind of slides through his legs into the net. Like, you can't give up those kind of goals. There's that Corey Perry kind of gaffe in Game 6. I think Game 6 was the one where they challenged the Perry goal for goalie interference, got the double power play. The game kind of went out of reach. That's a big fuck up, actually, from the coaching staff that no one's talking about, right? Like, Mitch Marner, if you don't flip the puck over the glass on the penalty kill, which gives you a 5-on-3, and then you don't challenge, like, the goal for the goalie interference, that game's completely different. And the Leafs are winning that game 9 times out of 10, right? So, I mean, that's a big fuck up from the coaching staff in that moment, right? I mean, I realize it was kind of do or die at that point, but, like, don't shoot yourself in the fucking foot at that point, right? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, and I think that was, you nailed it. Like, that was their last grasp. Like, this is like, we're going to hopefully win this to get back in this game, but it had the opposite effect. But yeah, okay, you brought up the Marner dump, and we have to talk about that. That guy cleared fucking 3 zones. Not only did he just chip this out of his defensive end, like, 10 feet up, like, he sent this puck sailing across the neutral zone, and it went over the glass in the Leafs or the Habs bench. Like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Like, that's like, big fuck up.
The weird thing is, like, he wasn't productive on the ice, but normally he tries really hard and he does other things. Like, he's a great penalty killer, right? Like, a guy of that skill that can also kill penalties, it's a dual threat, because if he gets the puck and he's on a breakaway, like, there's a chance he's scoring, right? And, like, there's not a lot of guys like that skill set. If you think back to the Boston Bruins series from 2 years ago, when they lost in Game 7, he was throwing himself in front of pucks, trying to block shots, trying to maintain the lead, trying to get something going, throwing his face in the line of danger, right? So, like, he's had that moment before. I don't know why he just looked like he didn't care right then. Like, it just seemed, I don't know, kind of like that big gaffe and that kind of the bad moment, right? I don't think wholesale changes are needed, to be honest with you. I mean, like, Nick Foligno wasn't healthy. That guy should have made a bigger impact on the ice. The forward depth in the Leafs does run dry. Great Joe Thornton won a Hart, right? He was an MVP of the league. He has all these points and stuff like that. But he's not that player right now. Wayne Simmons, great. He's this big physical presence, but, like, his offensive productivity isn't there, right? Like, if you kind of go down the list, if you wrote out all the forwards in terms of offensive production, the Leafs probably have, top 3? Matthews, Marner, Nylander. There's a steep drop-off after those 3. I think you put Montreal Canadiens. I think, like, of the top 12, you probably get 8 Montreal Canadiens on that list, and that's where the Leafs basically got beat. They were top-heavy. The bottom guys just really didn't produce, right? Like, Jason Spezza looked like they were their best forward at times. Jason Spezza can't be your best forward, right? So it's just that little bit of tinkering, right? And being healthy, too, right? When we've looked at the last 2 seasons and seen Jake Muzzin staring at the press box, looking down on the ice in an elimination game, Jake Muzzin's their most important defenseman. You got John Tavares, who I think that the emotional toll of watching that Tavares hit can't be understated, right? The fact that they were able to come back from that and be up 3-1 after that, I think does show that this team has a lot of heart. They just couldn't close the series, right? And it's kind of what it boils down to, so.
Yeah. I think I'm comfortable leaving it on that. We could belabor this fucking series the entire podcast, but we are off to bigger and better things.
The only thing I do want to mention, I do have it kind of pulled up on the screen here, is the Boston Bruins from, let's say, 04? Is that kind of where we're starting? Like 05, 06? They did not qualify for the playoffs for 2 years. They lost in the quarterfinals, and then the quarterfinals. They went to the second round the next year. They lost in the second round the following year. They lost in the first round, did not qualify. They did not qualify again. They lost in the first round, and then they won a Stanley Cup. So this is a process. We've seen that group in Boston stick together, and basically they just kept the core together and they learned. Look at the Ovechkins. I don't think it's just a stumble. It's not the be-all, end-all. So that's kind of the final point I wanted on that. And I saw that, and I was like, it does take, 5-6 years of losing before you can kind of win too sometimes. So anyways, on to bigger and better things.
Okay, well, you brought up an important part that I now need to mention.
Oh, okay.
And that is, every year, at the start of the year, or at some point in the season, Maple Leafs fans convince themselves that this is the year. This is going to be the year, no matter what. This is the year. Some point. Always happens. I say we plan parade route, no matter what. City of Toronto plans a parade route every September to say this is going to be the Stanley Cup route when the Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup. Anybody who says that and they don't win the Stanley Cup has to do the walk of shame. We will find Twitter users by name. Like, you have to hold your Twitter handle, like, paint it on your forehead, hold a sign above your head, so we can recognize you for, I'm the guy, hold your tweet high above your head, and then we all just get to shame you. Like, everybody flies to Toronto and shames these people.
See, we were going to cut that segment short, and you just dropped a genius idea on everybody, so everyone's welcome.
Marketing 101 NHL, you're welcome.
I mean, I'm sure Grant can speak to it at this point. Both of our teams are out at this point. I would much rather see my team lose in the playoffs in the first round than watch the draft lottery and hopefully that some ping pong ball gives them a good player. That's just me. Like, I'm gonna take 10 years of losing in the first round compared to, like, not caring about hockey towards the end of the season. So...
yeah, you know what? And it was refreshing to have the Oilers. The Oilers had a horse in the race. The Leafs had a horse in the race. Guess what? We're both fucking losers for believing in these franchises. Yep. So be it.
That's it. Speaking of... do you want to get into series? Wrap up the series? Or do you want to talk about mock drafts or, like, draft lottery?
All right, let's hammer through the draft lottery here.
Okie dokie. So the draft lottery was on Thursday night before the Montreal-Winnipeg game dos. Or was it game one? Might have been game two. Game one, actually. So it might have been on the Wednesday?
No, it was game one. It was right before or it was during Habs Jets. It was Wednesday.
Yeah, so really nothing happened. I believe the Seattle Kraken moved up from 3 to 2. That's pretty exciting. The Buffalo Sabres stayed firmly on top, and they are guaranteed the number one prospect because that's their draft history. They're definitely not going to pick some crappy guy. And that is pretty darn exciting. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I care much about the Buffalo Sabres.
But I was thinking about this. The best thing about this draft is that it's a crapshoot. You've brought it up a number of times on the podcast. We don't know what we're getting. NHL teams have less of an idea of what they're getting. This means that the probability of the Buffalo Sabres ruining the next biggest hockey player decreases because they're probably not even going to choose the best player. So really, this is probably like the silver lining is that the Buffalo Sabres, although they have the number one overall pick, aren't going to ruin the best next talented player. So good job, Buffalo.
That is pretty exciting. Yeah, I've got to go down the list. I mean, is what it is. I like I said, I've been saying now for a couple of years, if I had the first overall pick, I might be dangling it in some trades and saying, like, could I look at a team, bring in some extra talent, bring in some contracts, like bring in a second line for the first overall pick? Like, maybe that'd be a good thing for Buffalo, right? Add some depth, add some leadership kind of to the locker room through a trade like that. Flat cap era, it's a possibility. So,
you know what would be the most Buffalo Sabres thing to happen, actually? They trade the first overall pick for negotiating rights to Taylor Hall. And then Taylor Hall just says, no, I'm not signing in Buffalo. Yeah, that would just make my day. Like, that would be the Sabres move. Yeah,
that wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad. So, we'll see. But, I mean, we're going to have a powerhouse of a blue line here. Because we're going to have Owen Power teaming up with Rasmus Dahlin. 2 first overall picks on the blue line. You're not going to be able to score on the Buffalo Sabres pretty soon. So,
they're not even going to... You know what? Their best goalie will just be a third defenseman. So that is, rather than putting poor old Carter Hutton in his 86 save percentage on the ice, you're going to get two first overall draft picks. And then who's that big bastard? Ristolainen? Ristolainen is like 6'7". Hey, just stand there. You'll do better than Carter Hutton did.
That's how it's going to work. That's going to work. So again, not a lot of Canada content for you. The Canucks ended up 9th. Senators at 10 and Flames at 11. So we got a nice little kind of run there around the 10 spot. Montreal is picking at 16th. Oilers at 20th. And I believe the Jets are at 28th. So that's kind of how that is going to play out.
But I think that still has to be determined following the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah,
maybe.
Is that maybe? I don't know how that works.
Well, we'll find out afterwards. But I think it depends on how teams are eliminated from the postseason. Like, I think first round teams get reseeded from like 16 to 20 or whatever, or 24, and then kind of. I think, I'm not sure.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, that's all we need to spend on time on that. I'm not a big draft guy, anyways, especially in the NHL. I'm like, you may never see these guys again, right? Like,
yeah, when you have first round players who don't make it, it's like baseball too. Like when you have top 5 players who don't end up playing in the NHL.
Yeah,
not a whole bunch to get excited about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, because like that Rasmus Dahlin year, the Leafs selected Rasmus Sandin, and I was like, oh, it's defenseman, foreigner, same first name, close. He is just now. I think he made a couple appearances this last season. Looked like he's an all right kind of prospect, but I mean that draft was 4 years ago. So in 4 years, we can talk about Owen Powers and the impact he's making on some mediocre Buffalo Sabres team. Anyways, real hockey that matters. Teams that really matter. There's still stuff going on. Let's jump into those. Pull up the scores here. And what's going on? So we've got the Hurricanes and the Lightnings. Game 4. Tampa Bay is leading 2-1. It's kind of an interesting little series going down there in the southern states.
So Carolina has absolutely, I shouldn't say dominated, but they dominated on home ice. They've had an outstanding postseason. And that is Game 3 in Tampa Bay was the first time that they were actually outplayed from an advanced perspective at 5-on-5. So doing what they can to control the pace. And Tampa is just on this other side of, like, we saw it a little bit starting in Game 3 is they are on this unavoidable correction path because they are just overachieving so much. Like, they're scoring like 6 goals on 25 shots. Andrei Vasilevsky is stopping like 45 of 47 shots. It's just like their PDO is so inflated. Like, there's only one way it can go down. Like, and you saw that, like, or at least you started to see that in Game 3. And that's my biggest concern with this is that Tampa Bay obviously has the pedigree, defending Stanley Cup champions. However, the Hurricanes have been the better team all season. Like, I remember towards the end of the regular season, these teams met, and it was like basically the turning point for Carolina securing first spot in the Central and Tampa falling eventually to third. We're kind of seeing a different outcome now, and I think playoff experience is part of it. But I also know that Tampa Bay, they may get past Carolina. I don't really have a good read on this series. Like, my mind tells me Carolina's a better team. They've been outplaying the Lightning. They should win. But when I think about this, I'm like, well, Lightning, like, my gut's telling me the Lightning are going to move on to the next round. And it's just kind of like this unavoidable path. Like, they're gonna implode at some point. And I think that's probably, like, if I'm going with my gut, it's going to happen next round against the Boston Bruins. But they're just like, they're consistently getting outplayed and their production metrics are lacking. So yeah, I think tonight's going to be like the turning point. Okay. And that is, like, this is either, and like, I'm looking at some fucking crystal ball. Of course it's a turning point. It's either going to be 2-2 or 3-1. Mm-hmm. And I want to bet Carolina, especially at plus 146. But I think that this is the Lightning's game to lose.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm surprised that we're not seeing more effects of them kind of going late into the postseason last year, right? Like, it's hard to repeat. It's really tough in this league, right? Especially with the shortened season, playing in like the bubble. You think it would have taken more of a toll. So, I mean, the fact the Lightning are still kind of out there kicking it, it is what it is. I do think that, I don't know, like, you can play the game and you can kind of go through and say, like, Vasilevsky is better than what the Hurricanes have in net, and like Victor Hedman, probably one of the best defensemen in the NHL, right? So I mean, maybe they don't have the depth, but they have kind of the higher end talent. And then you look at the forwards, and you kind of play that game and just kind of go on and on. So yeah, I was toying with that game too. I think I just went with the over under. I was like, then I don't have to pick a winner, and I can just kind of watch hockey and enjoy it. I sometimes like that strategy. So that might be a hint of what's coming later for that one. But I agree. This is I don't know. These series, are
Series.
I kind of am over the whole you play your division all season and then you get stuck with your division. I'm kind of over it. I want some mix-ups. I'm really looking forward to the semifinals because I need a little diversity. Like the conference finals, when we see teams playing each other for the first time all year, you'll see tons of adjustments. You're going to see kind of just like, I think, bizarre occurrences on the ice, right? Where you're just like, that's weird. I'm kind of excited for that. I'm kind of just over this whole like, well, we've already seen this same matchup 8 times this year. Let's watch a best of 7 series and go from there. So that's how I'm feeling about that one. Boston Bruins and the New York Islanders. 3? How many overtime games have the Bruins played in at this point? Like combined, so they've got 2 in this one. The Bruins had 3 in the first round, and the Islanders had 2. So between them, they already have 7 overtime games. There's still a couple games to go in this series.
That's a cool trend, and that's been unique to this whole postseason. I think there's been 21, 22 overtimes. I counted a couple nights ago. I think it was at 20. And I think we've had 2 or 3 since then. So like 20, 23, somewhere in that range, overtimes so far this postseason. Like, that's fucking crazy, man. Like, that's a lot of playoff hockey. And some of these games have been sorted out quickly, but a few of them have gone on a little longer. And we haven't seen any long overtimes in the second round, but that might be coming between the Boston Bruins and New York Islanders because the Islanders rely so much on the defensive system to win games. And the Boston Bruins have taken a similar approach. And I think we're going to end up in this stalemate between these teams where the game just goes on for infinity. They are going to decide to play this game until like tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. One of these days it's going to happen because the way the Boston Bruins play, not giving up any chances, the way the Islanders play, not giving up any chances, both of the last 2 games went to overtime. Yeah. And if you want some breadcrumbs to follow into our Bettor Advice segment, that's a pretty noticeable trend. So, but that notwithstanding, Bruins have been the better team. Yeah. And we've seen it all postseason. They just they bully their opponents. They control the puck. They don't let you have a turn. And at the end of the game, they've outpossessed you, outshot you, outproduced you, and they'll beat you like 2-1.
Yeah. No, it's bizarre for a team that seemed kind of like it was limping, right? Like we weren't talking about the Bruins as the contenders, right? You were looking at the Penguins, you were looking at the Capitals playing this kind of elite level hockey, and then all of a sudden this Bruins switch kind of was flipped in the postseason, and it looks like, I mean, really, it's their series to lose. It's their conference to lose. It's their Stanley Cup to lose at this point, almost, right? Like, they're up there, so.
Yeah, and I told you, my Mick is my daddy bracket has Boston in the Stanley Cup Finals against the Vegas Golden Knights. One of those series is looking a little better than the other, at least from a superficial perspective. But you're absolutely right. Boston is trending in this direction where Tuukka Rask is playing outstanding. They are not giving you any chances. They are getting their best players to be their best players. Like they're checking all the narrative boxes that you want to check to say this is going to be the Stanley Cup winner. And from an advanced perspective, they have this supporting advanced analytics backing them up.
Yeah. Speaking of other series, teams that looks like are rolling, let's kind of jump over the North Division just for the time being because there's maybe a little bit more to unpack there. Vegas won their first game against the Avs last night. They were down 2-1, kind of with 10 minutes to go or so into the third period, where I think the Knights scored like 2 goals in 45 seconds or something like that to take the lead. They were able to hold on and give themselves a puncher's chance in that series. The Avalanche looked like they were on fire. They're in fuego. And they slowed down the Vegas Knights a little bit, but damn, that's some pretty good hockey.
That was some good hockey, and I have a feeling we'll talk about this a little later in the show, but you want to talk about puck luck? The Colorado Avalanche have exhausted their puck luck, and that is they're skating around with a 1.0, I think 1.090 PDO. Hypothetically, this should be 1. It's a combination of shooting and save percentages, and that is, hypothetically, at the end of the season, you should be somewhere in the 1 range. Obviously, that's not always the case. Teams kind of go up and down, and you're going to end. Some are going to end on the good side of the spectrum. Some are going to and on the bad side of the spectrum. But the Avs are so far on the good part of the section that it was just inevitable that they get those bad bounces. And I don't know if you saw the game last night.
I watched the replay this morning before the podcast, so hey.
The second and third Knights goals are exactly the type of bounces you expect to see when a team is that far on the spectrum. Like, when you're scoring on bank shots, that's fucking puck luck. And, like, God bless the Knights, and I think that they have been the better team, at least from an advanced perspective. They are outplaying the Avs at 5-on-5. It's just these goddamn power plays that the Avs keep getting that cost the Knights, and they haven't learned their lesson. That being said, the Game 2 overtime, I don't know if you saw the penalty. I can't remember who it was. It was the weakest slashing call, and it was off a draw. Guy skating, knocks his stick out. It was inconsequential. The puck was already gone. The defenseman had already got the puck away by the time this guy would have been out there. And the standard that we've seen in overtime every year, and especially this year where basically murder is allowed, they decided to call this slash, and it cost them. Like, you are giving the Avalanche the only advantage they have in this series, and that is giving Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen space to work in the offensive zone on the power play. Terrible call. Absolutely fucking god-awful call, and it cost the Knights. And there was a couple questionable calls last night, too, but obviously the Knights bounced back. They got those good bounces. The third goal, too, Max Pacioretty, like, that was, don't get me wrong, it was a good tip, but to tip it like he did and to get it, like, straight between his pads, like, again, we are trending towards those good puck luck bounces that you just are inevitable when a team's got a 1.09 PDO.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, officiating in the postseason at this point, I mean, based on the games I've seen, we can have a whole hour-long conversation on that one, right? Like, we could pull up clips and be like, oh, that's interesting.
And, like, there's a few that have stuck with me, and I know I chatted about it, maybe it was last podcast, or maybe it was even 2 podcasts ago, but officials, like, getting in the way, like, that cost the Edmonton in game 1 or 2 of their opening round series. And then it was the Winnipeg Edmonton series, another overtime penalty where somebody, or non-call, I should say, somebody from the Jets was literally holding on to Leon Draisaitl's stick in the attacking zone, and, like, he couldn't go anywhere. Like, the puck was right there, and they grabbed onto his stick so he couldn't get it until one of the Jets players came and swooped and picked it up. And we've been seeing it, too, in other series. Those are just the 2 that stuck with me.
Yeah, there was an Eric Stahl call where he was holding Nylander, like, blatantly holding him in the offensive zone, came back down, Nylander was holding Stahl got the whistle, you know, and it was essentially the same play. Like, they showed the replays, and it was the exact same thing kind of between the 2 players. So, like, I don't know, you gotta pick, as well as, the number of times I've seen linemen get hit by the puck and, like, deflect it out of play or something like that, or they're trying to go around them and it ends up, they kind of, like, are stuck in the play. It seems like it's a little bit more apparent right now. And maybe it's always been that way, and I'm just a bit more sensitive at my old age, but...
No, you picked up on a couple key things there. And I don't know what feedback the officials are getting from the NHL, but their positioning is changing right now. And it's costing them. Like, not just linesmen, refs too, are getting in the way of the play, and it is changing the outcomes of games. Like, you have 4 fucking officials on the ice. There's absolutely no need for somebody to be at the hash mark above the circle when they're in the attacking zone, especially when they're on that side of the ice. Like, and then same thing with linesmen. You're seeing them, like, rather than sticking to their line, it's more this, like, back and forth, go between blue lines, and it's again costing players, especially like when you're, like, the whole part. One of the biggest parts of analytics is, like, controlled entry into the zone. Hugely beneficial. You're controlling puck as you go into the zone. You maintain possession. It's not like you're dumping it and racing to a 50-50 battle or giving it to the other team. You're costing teams those chances to get the zone and control possession. And, like, whatever it is that they've changed, they need to go back on because it's not working.
Yeah. No, it's bad. And I'm pretty sure, actually, one of the Montreal goals against the Leafs was a direct result of the Leafs were pushing it forward. It went off the linesman back. Montreal took it, went and scored or something like that. It was like one of those, I'm like, I don't know. That bugs me. I'm not going to sit and complain, but like, that's hard to hear. Anyway, speaking of the Montreal Canadiens, that's the last series we have to talk about. They are dominating. They are crushing. They are killing the Winnipeg Jets, just like we knew they all would. And they are destined to go on to greatness. And Marc Bergevin is going to be rewarded for his incompetence as a general manager the last couple seasons. So I'm really glad, justice is being served. As a Montreal Canadiens supporter, I'm sure I'm really proud of looking at this team being like, oh, great, awesome. Now Bergevin's not going to go anywhere for a while, and we get to live with this for the next little while. Great.
Okay, so there's a lot to talk about.
All right.
But did you see Marc Bergevin's suit? I think it was Game 7. How bright red it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he looked like the Bonhomme. Like, I was like, this is the living iteration of the Bonhomme.
Yep.
And his jubilation at the end of the game, too. I was like, big rosy cheeks. I was like, man, this is the Bonhomme.
He's around. He exists. We found him.
But in all seriousness, I've said this time and time again. You've heard it for the last 5 years. 5 years we've been doing this. And every postseason I have said, a hot goaltender will carry a team further than it deserves to go.
Mm-hmm.
And you are seeing that right now with Carey Price. Granted, the Winnipeg series, Montreal was the better team in Game 1. More of I would say, favored the Jets in Game 2. But especially in Toronto series, like, if Montreal or if Carey Price doesn't make those overtime saves in Game 6, Habs are going home. Like, there's no... If you had anybody other than Carey Price in net for Game 6 and 7...
Oh. Like, you don't have to go that far. Like, if Carey Price isn't Carey Price in Game 1, the Leafs sweep. Like, that's the difference of the series, right? Like, Carey Price was, like, unbelievable Game 1 through 7, right? Like, there wasn't a bad goal. There was not a time he was out of position. There was not a time he was caught doing something that he shouldn't be. Like, Carey Price is playing like a man possessed. Montreal is playing a really good... they're just basically clogging the shooting lanes, so not giving a lot of space around the net, and they're kind of just being reliant on that, right? And I don't know if I've said that before, but I'm calling them very opportunistic. They're taking any chance they have. Was it Toffoli with his shorthanded goal a couple nights ago or something like that? Like, Last night? Like, how? How does that happen? That's what, their second, third shorthanded goal in the postseason? Like, that's... good for them.
And, like, the thing that bothers me the most is that Claude Julien is a better coach. And Dominic Ducharme is going to get all the credit, and he's going to go on, and I know whatever happens, he's going to sign an extension because he's gotten them this far. It looks like the Jets are just a formality. Dominic Ducharme does not have a good approach to coaching, and you're seeing it in these series. And, like, granted, all right, I will concede Montreal's defensive zone coverage is outstanding. You saw it in Game 7, you saw it in Game 1, you saw it a little bit in Game 2. They are hard to beat in their own end, and that's making Carey Price's job a lot easier. But they are not doing anything offensively, and their power play is dog shit, like absolute dog shit. And they're still getting past, and, like, I feel bad saying this. The Jets are an easy out. The analytics support that the Jets shouldn't be where they are either. Montreal shouldn't be here, but they're better than the Jets. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, you get 2 more wins. You're off to the, whatever you want to call it, league semifinals. I don't know what to call it this year, but league semifinals against one of the Avs and Golden or Knights. You've already overachieved. You've overachieved by getting this far. Chances are you're going to make it to the semifinals. And everybody's going to be like, oh, yeah, look how good the Habs were. No, the Habs got lucky.
Yeah. And, like, great lucky. And, like, yeah, you got to win, I suppose. But I think it's a sunk cost at this point. And I'm going to take my emotions out of this. The Habs winning right now is kind of a sunk cost. So last year, them beating Pittsburgh, great, they got a little bit of playoff experience under their belt. But they also had a chance at Lafreniere at that point, right? So, I mean, like, you're throwing yourself into the ring. You could have a great young kind of talent, like, offensive player come into your system versus those next kind of games against the Flyers there, right? This year, great, they beat, the Leafs, awesome. They might move on. Great. but they're not getting ticket sales. So that's what I mean. Like in terms of sunk cost, the Montreal Canadiens, like the owners are not seeing any benefit because they're not getting people in those buildings, like to the greater extent, right? Yeah, okay, they're getting 6,000 people buying tickets. Well, that doesn't really turn the needle in terms of finances, right? And I mean, you're kind of just running the tread on this tire, which I don't know if it's going anywhere. And I do wonder if it hurts them long term, right? Versus if you saw like you got a Lafreniere into your system last year, right? There's that kind of insurgence of young talent. Maybe you miss out earlier on, you get kind of a better prospect. So I do wonder if it's kind of a, like as a Habs fan, I'm like, this is great. We're not winning the cup, but like, what's the result? Is this going to hurt us kind of long term? Similar to that core in Calgary. They, that had a couple postseason runs, say like 5 years ago, when we started doing this. They were winning those playoff series, but they weren't good enough. And like, how do you get better? I mean, I guess Montreal has the advantage of people want to play in Montreal. It's a cool city to live in, right? It's a great organization, lots of history, so maybe they can bring in some outside talent. But I do wonder if there's some type of like net loss long term as a result of this like success at the moment, right?
Yeah, and you see it every year, and you see it in every sport. Teams get lucky, or they ride this hot goaltender, and then they fall back. The one that kind of is analogous, like cross-sport analogy, is NFL. 2015, was that the year Carolina played Denver? Something like that.
Yeah.
They were so far ahead of their analytics that season, and that is like they were just overachieving in every regard, that like a fall back down to earth was inevitable.
Yeah.
And like the Habs can, like I said, hot goalies can carry you as far as you need to go. You see it every year. But the Habs are going to pay for this. Mm-hmm. And I do still think that they have a lot of great pieces, but you can't continue to overachieve and continue to overachieve. Like, it's just the analytic support that it does not happen.
And I've been trying to like just rack my brain, like, where is that other analogy, that other sports analogy? And I wonder if we could look at the Jaguars, that AFC Championship game where they lost to Tom Brady, right? They were like a touchdown pass away from going to the Super Bowl that season, and they assumed that they had the right assortment, that Blake Bortles was the piece. They had all the offensive pieces in line, and their defense was great. And then you just saw that team just bleed talent for the next couple years, and they're at the bottom again, right? They've got a brand new kid in there with Trevor Lawrence this year, and I do wonder if it's one of those things where you almost think if they would have just sucked a little bit more, they wouldn't have had to pay for Bortles. They could have went a different route. It's kind of like the sliding doors moment. If a puck, if one of those overtimes against the Leafs goes a little differently, the Montreal Canadiens probably look differently in 5 years, versus because they won, they're going to, maybe not be as great or something like that. So what a downer segment as a Montreal Canadiens fan listening to this.
I have real futures money. So I took at the start of the year Montreal at 35-1 to win the Stanley Cup. And, like, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely thrilled about where they're positioned right now, but I also know that this is going to be, like, their Icarus moment. Mm-hmm. Like, they're flying way too close to the sun.
Yeah. No, it's just something to keep note of. And I mean, again, like I was saying earlier, if I'm a Habs fan right now, I'm taking this playoff run. I'm enjoying every second of it compared to, like, sitting around watching the draft lottery or something, hoping my team maybe has a chance to get a higher pick. So, I mean, take it, run with it, right? But I think, like we said, it's going to bite you in the butt at some point.
Yeah, the saddest shit, just, too, they've got 2 games left in Montreal. Best case scenario, 2 postseason games left where they can have, I think it was 2,500, 3,000 fans, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's not a huge net effect in the for the Habs in their terms of, like, revenue generated, but they are going to abandon their home to go to another locale in the next round, I believe. Mm-hmm. That's going to impact their chances, I think, to go from the comforts of your home stadium, your homes, like where you live, where you're comfortable.
Yeah. Oh, and like
to go playing on the road.
I mean, that's going to be tough too, right? And that's one of those things that people weren't looking at, I think, when they were talking about how far could the Oilers go, right? They're destined to win the Cup, or the Leafs have a good chance. I'm like, they're going away. Like, they have to find a different home at some point, and they might be playing all road games for the last 2 series. I'm like, I don't think good things are going to happen, guys. I think it's just, it's going to be weird, right? And they're going to be going to these stadiums like Vegas, where all of a sudden now you're a Habs, and you look up and there's, 16,000 people screaming, yelling at you, and you're like, when I'm at home, I'm not allowed to go outside my house, so... Like, the shell shock of that, I don't know. It'll be interesting, so.
Okay, so that's a good point. Did you see, I guess you saw in the highlights this morning, but the Vegas T-Mobile Arena was an absolute shit show. Like, I was just like, I was soaking in that energy just sitting on my couch watching the game. Like, I can't imagine what that felt like, especially once the Knights took the lead with 6 minutes to go, whatever it was. It's like, imagine the emotions that those players are feeling, both from a Knights perspective and also the Avs. Like, you're now defeated. Like, these fans have beat you. And that's something that the Habs are going to miss. I think even with we heard 2,500 fans in Game 7, Game 6. Like, they made their presence known, and they're not going to have that from semifinals onwards.
Yeah. So something to keep in mind. So as we kind of went into that weird spiral, I guess let's move on to something else.
We went to a dark place. We went to a dark place.
And we didn't even talk about, we actually did not talk about that series at all. So the Habs are leading they went up early against the Jets. They beat Hellebuck, which I was surprised by. If you beat Connor, great. There was that nasty hit by Scheifele on Jake Evans. Jake Evans, there we go. At the end of the game, he's been suspended. Probably won't see him again. Favors the Habs?
Yeah, you're right. So we didn't even talk about that series. We just fucking shit on the Canadians. It felt good. It did feel good.
Oh, great. We didn't get really.
And this has come from somebody who has
Habs
futures.
They won me hundreds of dollars.
Splits. I got.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can't be mad. But anyways, curious splits. Connor Hellebuck. He has a worse save percentage at home than he does on the road. And granted, last night's performance was a lot better, but it's substantive. It's 90 versus 94 type thing. So he is way better on the road. And Carey Price is also going to be outstanding at home. He always is. So now I'm thinking, if we talked about the Infinity game, if there's going to be an Infinity game, it's going to be Connor Hellebuck on the road versus Carey Price at home. Bring your sleeping bags, friends, because you're going to be there a while.
Going to be a long game. So there you go. That was a weird way to break down the Jets and Habs, but moving on. We got a little bit of Bettor Advice is what we call this, our fantasy advice. So we dove into the realm of FanDuel, the daily fantasy, and to mixed results. I had a great week last week. I got second out of 51, and I turned my $1 entry into $7 whole.
Shit, man, that's good. I also had a good outing, but it could have been a lot better. I joined a pool of 892, and I finished 25th, so I turned $1 into $4. Nice. So not as successful, but I was fucking around with my lineup, and it cost me. I had David Krejci in my lineup, and I was goofing around on the show. I ended up taking him out. I had him in there, but then I had too many players, so I ended up taking him out. I had 184 points, and if I just would have left David Krejci in, I would have won, because he ended up having something like 30 points. Winner had 204 points. I finished with 184.1. So, I fucked myself. I did this to myself, and it cost me. I think the winner ended up taking $75. So it was net effect of $72.
Darn.
I talked myself out of it. I fucked up. But I am excited about my lineup this week. Who do you got?
So I'm just showing everyone my winning lineup right now. Ooh, look at it. Thanks, David Pasternak. That was nice. And Kotkaniemi, my throwaway player at center. That overtime goal, I was like, won me some money. I was like, on both sides. I was like, what do I got going on today? I did this. I went for a nice walk this morning, because that's what I do. Apparently I'm an old man and walk in the park. What the fuck's wrong with me? Why do I tell people these things? Today I've got a plethora. I took a bunch of Boston Bruins, and there were some Islanders. I think I even took a Tampa Bay Lightning. So, pretty exciting stuff. Starting in net, I went with Andrei Vasilevsky against the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't know who's starting for Carolina, so I kind of just went with, at least I know that I can guarantee, say, Vasilevsky is playing. If we go up to the top, I took a fan favorite of the show, with Yoan Gord, $4,000, my number one center. I paired up Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and Jake DeBrusk. So I've got kind of a hitter's row. Boston Bruins there between my other center, my two wing positions. Mikhail Sergachev at $3,800. Seems all right. Jakub Slavin again at like $3,900 for my D. Unless you want to spend all your money on like Victor Hedman, I don't know if D are worth it. And honestly, in these games today, and then my two utility players were Nikita Kucherov and Matthew Barzal.
I dig it. I do like your approach. We kind of took a similar approach. I'm digging Vasilevsky in that. Like, I kind of think I've talked myself into the Lightning over the last little while. The challenge is that for me, I think that's going to be a high-scoring game, and I know that all the money's coming in on the under, just like in the Boston Bruins New York Islanders game. But I think that we're going to see a high-scoring game. So it's on that basis that I loaded up on forwards from both the Hurricanes and Lightning. I should just say forwards. Players from both teams.
Smart.
Skaters, rather. So, starting up front, I took Braden Point and Jordan Staal as my centerman. Staal had that overtime winner Game 3. Mm-hmm. He's been doing really well this postseason. Braden Point, top-line guy. You can't go wrong, I think, and I paired him with Andre Palat. Similarly, I paired Jordan Staal with Martin Necas. So I just think that I've taken this, let's just go with the line that you think is going to put up points and ride it. So first line from Tampa Bay, second line from Carolina. I hope that results in a few points. I have also, in my defenseman, a splurge on Victor Hedman. I'm kind of talking myself into this. It's worth splurging on defensemen because when I've done that, I've been more successful. So Victor Hedman, $6,400. I think he was the highest priced defenseman, but that didn't stop me. I also paired him with Charlie McAvoy, and that is tying in my Bruins love for the Bruins tonight. So Charlie McAvoy, $6,200, again, a splurge on defense, but he's a big part of power play. And I feel like the difference is power play points from defensemen, because there's always like, I would say, not always, I would say like 90% of the time there's a pass from a defenseman. It's just like the nature of the power play, forward to defenseman or defenseman to forward. Like it feels unavoidable. So Charlie McAvoy and bringing me to my utility players, Jesper Fast. Again, role player, maybe he gets an assist, maybe he has a few block shots. I had $3,400 to work with, or I had $3,500 to work with, so I landed on Jesper Fast. But that left me with a whole shitload of money left, so I splurged on David Pastrnak, Bruins' best player this postseason. We saw last week, he was my golden boy. I think he put up 45 points, something like that. He wasn't even he's not even the highest priced Bruin, but he's the best skilled player they have. 7,800 feels like a steal. And that left me with Tuukka Rask in net. Like I said, I think that with Tampa and Carolina being the higher scoring affair, I felt safer going with Rask. And like I said, I may have talked myself into the Lightning, but I think Rask is the safer option. Again, he's been playing outstanding this postseason. We saw it in Game 3 in New York. And he just seems to lift, like he's like the Energizer Bunny, man. Like the guy just fucking goes. I don't know how much overtime he's played, but he hasn't missed a beat the entire time. So I went with Tuukka Rask. I might talk myself into Vasilevsky.
All right, cool, yo. Yeah, sounds like we're kind of a similar headspace. I can't remember what I did 2 weeks ago. I feel like I had like a really bad lineup, had a really good lineup. So this is gonna be kind of the litmus test. It's tough with these small schedules too, right? When there's two games, because it's kind of like, I feel like most people are going to have the same players, so you just really need to have that difference maker, right? So I mean, like if you're looking at my lineup, really I need probably 10 plus, maybe 15 points from Sergachev and Slavin on my defense, as well as I need like a goal from Yoan Gord tonight would probably be the difference maker if this is kind of a make or break lineup, right? So it's kind of those little guys like the Jake DeBrusk. If he had a goal, I'm kind of laughing. Those big guys more than likely are going to kind of come through. So,
yeah. Well, good luck to you, sir.
Yeah,
I am kind of starting to. DFS has been better. It's like anything. When you win, it's always more fun. So it's been a little bit more fun for me for the last few weeks here. So big things coming, I think.
Sweet. And that leads us to our second to last segment, because we got two more coming at you guys. We get a little bit of Bettor Advice. So I'm doing all right. I had a bit of a win-win situation last week. I think I had the Leafs winning in 6, so I was going to win money that way. So I put a bunch of money on the Montreal Canadiens, cashed in there, as well as I had the over 5 goals in the Boston Islanders, and I believe it was 5-2, so I hit on those two, so killing it right now.
Yeah, you're cruising last week. That was good work. I, on the other hand, had to scrape out a victory, and that is I made $2, and that is I bet $4.30 on the Habs to win, and that net me $102. So that basically net me, $62. Then I blew my other $60 backing Boston, and then the 2-game parlay. So I had Boston Islanders in overtime, Montreal to win. If I would have reversed those, it would have been a whole different story.
Yeah.
Not complaining, scraped out a little bit, better than a loss. So I have taken a similar approach, and that is I'm just kind of digging this 2 picks plus a parlay. I just like the strategy, makes me feel good, so I'm going to go with it. I took Carolina Hurricanes at Tampa Bay Lightning over 5.5 for $50. Let me talk you through this. The Carolina Hurricanes have gone over in 3 of 4 road games, I believe, this postseason. The Tampa Bay Lightning have gone over in 2 of 4 home games. However, their supporting metrics are just through the roof, and that is their offense is just rolling, and they're giving up a ton of chances. And that was especially evident in Game 3. And that game stayed under the total, 3-2 overtime win for Carolina. But there was something like 75-plus shots. There was 80 scoring chances. There was 31 high-danger opportunities. These goalies can't sustain that level of play. And the trend has been more production. That will eventually lead to more output. I'm banking on that happening in Game 4. So $50 at plus 118 will, hypothetically, if I'm on the right track with this, if nothing else, I'll, again, scrape out a little bit.
Perfect.
However, I have done what I always do on a Saturday, which I have done consistently all season, and I have bet Boston, New York to go to overtime for the 3rd straight game. It's plus 290, and anytime you see that dip below 300, chances are a lot of people are thinking about it. That doesn't mean that I'm not using that to validate this is going to be right, but at least, other hopefully sharp-minded people are on the same track as me. Plus 290 for $30 and that was to win potentially $87. Again, both defensive teams. We've seen overtime throughout this postseason. I missed on these guys last Saturday. I'm rolling the dice with them again tonight. And then I've parlayed the 2 for $20, and that is plus $750, so to potentially turn $20 into $150.
It's not bad.
Why not?
Sweet. I agree with you about 60% on the Carolina game, so I'm only going to bet $30 instead of your $50. Math. I got it. I'll take the over on the Tampa Bay Carolina, like you said. I think overs are just a lot more fun. Like, you got to be a sick, sadistic person to bet the under. It might happen, but I'm going to take over 5 goals for minus 115 for $30 in that Boston Islanders game. I couldn't pick, and overs are just kind of my cop-out. I'm going to leave $40. I got 30 on both those overs. I'm going to put $40 on the Winnipeg Jets to win Game 3 at plus 115 on the road tomorrow. I am based on the fact that the Montreal Canadiens have won 5 straight playoff games. I'm thinking they're just bound for a rebound. They're going to lose. There's a bad bounce coming. There's a lot of puck luck going their way. I think it's going to come back the other way. And I think I like that. Payout for that bad boy would be $86 into my pocket. It keeps me afloat, basically. So.
All right, I dig it. Similar strategies this week. Yeah, our similar headspace. I think it paid off last week. We're kind of in the same space this week, so I'm hoping that good omen.
Well, it's just a convergence, right? Like, all season, it's just a slow build until the point where we just, like, form into one person at the end, and then it's just one screen, I think, so.
Like a human centipede situation? That's what I'm picturing.
Pretty much.
Maybe it's more graceful than that,
oh.
but
Yeah, that movie Butch. It wasn't really that. It was like yeah. I don't know how merging works. I'm hoping we go side to side and not like ass to mouth, but that's just me.
Just full on body smush.
Yeah.
No.
Grant, what's wrong? He's like, I'll mix like merge it like up my ass. So, oh okay. That's why there's like half a person hanging out here. All right.
The universe just had to prove its point. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We'll eventually go back to normal.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. The start of next season will be completely opposite. So good stuff.
But from bad butt stuff to good butt stuff.
Heyo.
We have our last segment, and that is the Babe of the Week. I am a little disappointed. I left my Instagram open to the Babe of the Week, but she's not there. So I just had to open up, and thankfully my phone gets me. Instagram algorithms get me because automatically a Babe of the Week showed up, and there's no disputing this woman is an absolute smoke show. So our Babe of the Week, Wally Vale. Wallivale, all one word. I don't know what international Latin dancer, twice absolute Italian champion, finalist world championship, Miss Perla del Porto.
It's not bad.
But maybe it's something about the flexibility. Maybe it's just that blondes are my absolute kryptonite. But Wally Vale is our Babe of the Week.
Schwing, yeah. And I was going to say with the Euros coming up, I'm going to be eating a lot of pasta here in the next little while, getting my Italian on, if you know what I mean. I don't know what that means, so.
I'm excited to find out, though. I want you to document whatever that means.
All right.
I'm excited.
I can do that. Yeah, sweet. So with that wraps up another show, another week. We'll be back next week. We'll probably... we might be in like the league finals or semifinals, if you want to call it that, just based on the way some of these series are rolling. So, just clipping along.
Won't be long till we're. You know what? We might even be able to talk about Euro bets next week. We've opened it up in the past. Maybe I'm going to sprinkle some $20-$30 on some sort of Euro futures champion.
Nice. That's never backfired before, and I've never won like hundreds of dollars betting on like football randomly on this show, and then you're like, what the hell? You lost all your hockey bets, but you're up like $600 because of stupid Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, yeah.
God damn you, Falcons.
All right. Good times. Well, with that, party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We will see everybody next week.
Bye.